Our next speaker, Mike Roan, will talk to us about disruption from a business perspective. Mike is the manager of wholesale markets at Meridian Energy, and he's going to talk to us about the kinds of disruptions they experience, how that affects them as a business, and indeed the evolution of their approach to helping their people cope with that over a period of time. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Mike Roan.
Thanks, Pam. Hey, before I start, I draw you to the byline that I was reminded of as I walked into this conference hall for Human Synergistics. And the reason it struck me is it's pretty clear changing the world one organisation at a time is exactly what Human Synergistics do. And I think, as Glenn gave us some insight to, is the LSI framework helps us somewhat overcome ourselves. So it's very, very powerful framework that you can introduce into any business. As Pam said, I run the wholesale team at Meridian. We sell and make Meridian's electricity. I hope most of you know who Meridian is. For those who don't, we're New Zealand's only 100% renewable electricity generator and retail company. Mine is a bit of a business story. The reason that we have incorporated LSI into our business is for many of the reasons that Michelle laid out so clearly for us, is we're seeking to improve our performance. And we're also seeking to ensure that we play a constructive role in the makeup of New Zealand's economy. And as we've done it, we've actually uncovered something pretty powerful, which is the culture that LSI fosters within an environment is as much of a competitive advantage for us as the assets that we love and own. So in Meridian's case, LSI is being led by the business. Our HR team, I didn't get to see whether any of them were able to join us today, but they wonderfully said to us, we've got a set of tools here that we can help you deploy through the business, but you must first own them if we're to truly be successful in the deployment of these tools within our business. And the reason for that was really simple, is it's business leaders who motivate, inspire, and hopefully drive collective performance. And that's why I'm here, is I, amongst many of the business leaders at Meridian, are on this journey. I could talk about this, I will talk about it a bit more in a minute, but this is important to all of us, and our CE, Mark Binns, wasn't able to join the conference today, but he did want to provide some opening remarks. So I'm going to run a quick clip before jumping into the remainder of the presentation.
I've been here for 3 years now, and we've had a lot of disruptive activities occur in that period, without a doubt. First up was the period when I first arrived, when we had the driest inflows into our lakes for over 82 years. That most certainly is very disruptive to customers and to your financial viability unless you get on top of it. So that was a big one for us. At the same time, the government was trying to sell 49%, and did sell 49% of Meridian to the public. So we had to take a big chunk of our people and put them on that project while we still looked after customers and ran our assets efficiently. If that wasn't enough, then we had the owners of TY Point walk in the door and say, hey, unless we can renegotiate our electricity contract, we're thinking of leaving New Zealand. Well, they're 40% of our total generation, so that most certainly had the potential to be very, very disruptive. So if you add all of those examples together, I mean, we most certainly have a business that has to concentrate on areas where we can be disrupted. What appeals to me about LSI is it's such a practical tool in understanding how you are being perceived by others. And in my view, business is all about working through people. And this is a tool that allows you to understand how you are perceived by others, because what I found is how I thought I was portraying myself to people in a couple of areas was very, very wrong and not effective. So personally, for me, it's a great tool, and also it's a great tool for discussions amongst your team, because it provides a very non-threatening framework to basically open up and talk to people about how you perceive them and they perceive you. So very, very effective in making teams work. LSI supports the business by being a tool that can be used right down on all levels in the business. I think it's fair to say that Meridian in the past has been viewed as quite a siloed organisation. So, we had teams, and teams would talk down silos, but they wouldn't talk across the business. And I think LSI is a tool that we can use in all the teams to make sure that we get that cross-functional talk going. But I find it particularly useful when I have a hard problem that I need to convey to people, or a concept, because I always go back and think about, okay, how are people seeing me? What did my LSI tell me? And my LSI identified me as being rather perfectionistic, actually quite high levels, and that was a real shock to me. If you ask my wife, she'd fall over laughing, thinking that I had those sorts of traits. But it allows me to think about how I'm being perceived by people, how I should frame things, how I should frame discussions. And I think if people through the business use it in that way, they're going to find that they're far better communicators and far better contributors to the team as a whole. So I think it's a very practical tool for use right throughout the business. Meridian's got a great future. We've just finished our first year after the IPO. It's been stunningly successful, and we're looking forward to the future with a lot of confidence. That said, I mean, we've got hard yards to do. Everybody knows that it's going to be a tough market. New Zealand's electricity usage isn't growing, so we have to concentrate on doing the basics right. So that's all about teams doing what they do better. So there's going to be a lot of communication, a lot of talk, and a lot of doing. So getting that communication right up and across the business is going to be really, really important to us. So having effective teams that can solve just those small problems that we need to resolve is going to be really important. So I think LSI is a fantastic tool for us to use into the future, and it's a very bright one at that.
As I'll jump to the slide in a second, but everybody says it is to be successful in deploying tools that help us connect with each other, you've got to have leadership from the top. And I hope you heard that from Mark. He's an inspiring guy who's sets a very positive tone within our business, and he's developed an incredible set of skills that help him do what he does. I used to think that he had an uncanny knack for making you feel good when he was giving you those brutal facts. One of the beauties of this sort of framework is I now know that it's not uncanny at all. It's practice, and it's possible for all of us. So I hope you enjoyed that. Making electricity, it's a privilege. And the reason it's a privilege is it's such an important product for our economy. And because we play such an important role in New Zealand's economy, many of the mechanisms that we use to guide what we do are enshrined in regulation and legislation. In fact, the Acts of Parliament and industry code overseen by industry regulators ensure that we provide stability for consumers over time. And they're like a bit of a glue that bind us together and help us deliver what we do successfully. However, regulation it's not static. To be effective, regulation's got to keep up with the changing challenges that we might face while representing the views of those of us who are lucky enough to live here. And when it doesn't, people rightly present the views that might be in opposition to what we do. Our job is to bring on as many of these views as possible and as openly as possible so that they can be considered and debated, at times voted on. Being honest, not always easy. Not always easy because, we are people, but our shareholders, the media, and our customers demand it of us. And they demand, in particular, that we're constructive at all times. The LSI framework, no surprise, helps us manage and sometimes check the behaviours that we would otherwise exhibit in these circumstances. And it's easy to say, standing up here on stage, that you can check your behaviours, but it's tough to always get it right, particularly when things go wrong. And in every industry, things do go wrong. The power outage in Auckland recently is an example where things in our industry went horribly wrong, and it wasn't just the lattes or lack of lattes in Auckland that was a problem. The reality is that businesses and homes or households across the city grind to a halt instantly. And that's what our product provides, is great lifestyle, productive power for businesses. But when it goes wrong, when we get disruption in our business, it means absolute disruption for those that rely on us. And it feels very, very real. So enabling and using some of the tools that LSI provides for us to support a wider conversation, so that we can have less of those incidents and we're better at what we do. We can ensure that regulation reflects our contribution through the economy is very, very important to us and very beneficial. I don't know how people respond when I put this sort of slide up. I never quite know how people are going to respond when I say the markets that we operate in are very competitive. Sometimes I get a bit of a, oh, right, yeah, right. And I kind of sit back and go, why? Why do I get that sort of reaction from people when, this truth exists? And I put it down to a very simple fact, is we all want to pay less. Me, everyone in this audience, whether it's electricity, petrol, it doesn't really matter, phones, other stuff. It all takes chunks out of our wallets. And whether it's corporates or personal, we're all looking to maintain as much discretionary income or control over our finances as possible. But in New Zealand, competition is used to drive the cost and manage the costs for the majority of our products. And the reason for this is really straightforward, hopefully. And it's, if you give people choice, they'll find someone who actually offers them value. In turn, we, people who want to provide a product or service, we'll do our utmost to find the way to present you with that value, because if we don't, we risk losing the relationship with you. And that is the basis of competition, is We want to do the best we can. You want the best solution that meets your needs. The brilliance of New Zealand at the moment is New Zealand electricity markets are the most competitive on the planet. I don't know if you see the stats or not, but the markets that we operate in are incredibly competitive. And as a result, the level of competition within our businesses and amongst our competitors is totally disruptive. You don't know what a competitor is going to do tomorrow. None of us do. That's kind of what we're all trying to second guess. But you do know that they're going to do it better than they did it yesterday. And to keep up, our teams have to constantly innovate and adjust what they do. And this change is something that's challenging for people. So LSI, in a competitive framework, is very supportive of these sorts of efforts. In fact, some of the most successful decisions that we've made in our business since adopting LSI have been made by parts of our organisation that are not directly accountable for the decision that they suggest. But because the culture facilitates it, they feel that they're able to make that contribution to teams like mine, and they do make those contributions to teams like mine that make us successful. And as I mentioned earlier, this is becoming a competitive advantage for my business. LSI is truly supporting our overall performance as a company. So I talk about impact on the economy. I mentioned competition, but Mother Nature is a very hard taskmaster. Competition in New Zealand is fierce, but Mother Nature is probably the most disruptive force that exists on the planet, whether it's our business or anyone else's. No joke, there's nothing more disruptive than rain on your child's birthday, right? Or maybe a little more seriously, and from a New Zealand perspective, the opposite, which is no rain in sight during milking season. We, for some reason, well, I know why, because we believe in it, is we choose to harness this at Meridian. So we choose to harness nature's bounty and manage it as best we can. I hear you say, how? How? And it's because we rely only on wind and water to make the electricity that we produce, which is phenomenal, makes me feel very good about what we do and our contribution beyond producing the product. But I can tell you it's not all beer and skittles. We get droughts just like farmers. We also manage massive storms and floods. While we remember them, those events that strike us, they often find their way into the press. The reality is they are reasonably infrequent at the edges of what we do. Most of the time, that bounty that New Zealand has is a tremendous resource that we use. So more importantly than the impact that Mother Nature has on our business is the choice we've made to rely on it actually affects our people as well. And that's because to keep our generation running, a lot of our teams actually have to live in those environments, like Fiordland, where it rains a lot, and or right here in Wellington. I don't know anyone who walked in or along the waterfront today, but incredibly windy, probably one of the best wind resources on the planet, but we have big operating teams out the back of Macra as well. And they've got to make decisions that maintain their safety all the time. Often, they've got challenges that they deal with while we're all tucked up, snoozing away, because, again, this product that we provide is 24/7. And LSI serves them in those circumstances. You've got no one to turn to, but you've got to make that decision, which is, do I go out and fix the stuff that might be broken, because the more extreme the conditions, the more likely it is that something will fail? Or do I stay home for my own safety? And again, easy to say standing here, but that's a really tough call to make when you know that people are relying on you. At the very least, you have to have confidence that people will back you up, right, regardless of the decision that you make. And I can tell you that they are supported in those decisions that they make, unless they make a decision that risks their well-being. So LSI, from the perspective of our people, is a very powerful mechanism to help us make decisions, given our exposure to Mother Nature. Where am I leading with all of this is simple, is disruption is part of the world or the business that we operate in. But it's not, disruption isn't what people remember. It's not what gets remembered. What people remember is how we carry ourselves through disruption. Being aware of and understanding that we're in control and accountable for all of the choices that we make is right at the heart of LSI. If we make choices constructively, then people will typically want to be part of what we do. If we feel that we can tell people the choices that they need to make, or that we're the only ones who can make good ones, then we tend to separate ourselves from them. And of course, if we don't make any decision at all, then our business will fail. Businesses that don't, or people in businesses that don't make decisions, they fail. We're about 2.5 years into our adventure or journey with LSI, and as you heard from Mark a little earlier, we've had good traction. So we have had very, very good traction. In fact, I met someone who's in the audience today who began the journey with us and enlisted me as one of the business owners that needed to live the styles that contribute to the overall growth and performance. And our journey has been challenging at times, but we are making incredible traction. So thank you, Rachel. Having said that, we are who we are. We kind of like the people that we look at in the mirror each morning. We've built them up over, hopefully, most do. Glenn got some challenge, but the reality is changing behaviour within an organisation takes a long, long time. So we're making long-term commitments to this framework and to our business. So we do remain a bit of a work in progress. And before wrapping up, I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight into where we've got to right now. So that was us in 2012. This is LSI 2. So this is how people perceive each other working within the organisation. And that's LSI 2 in 2014. Some adjustments to the circumplex. I think that's a natural and normal element of changing staff. The thing I'd like to leave you with is we are making progress. But the other thing I'd like to leave you with is it takes commitment and it takes time to make these changes. And so when we see this circumplex, there's still lots for us to work on. I mentioned before that we're a work in progress, is we see these as very, very real changes going on within our business. So the fact that what we see up here are incremental improvements on where we started, and where we started was a positive place to start from, is we see them as very real reflections of the effort that we're putting in. So leave you with one last comment. Given what we see here, behaviour takes time to adjust. These improvements in how we work with each other are truly real within our business. We intend on extending this progress with the support of Human Synergistics and the LSI framework. Thank you.